Acting Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Secretary Kevin McAleenan confirmed to Congress this week that his agency is merely acting as a checkpoint for adults crossing the United States-Mexico border with children, as 100% are being released into the interior of the country. During a hearing before the Senate Homeland Security Committee, McAleenan said DHS is releasing 100% of adult border crossers into the interior of the country who arrive with children at the southern border, including those who are not even asking for asylum. Then, within 4 to 6 weeks, McAleenan said the adult border crossers who have been released into the U.S. are given work permits allowing them to take American jobs while they await their court hearings, oftentimes 2 years down the road. McAleenan confirmed the mass catch and release effort in an exchange with Senator Rob Portman, R.O. Portman: so, what percent of those families who come up to the border and, again, approach your officer, ask for asylum, are being released into the community within days? McAleenan: 100%. Portman: 100%? McAleenan: yeah, and they're not necessarily asking for asylum. They don't have to. They can go into an immigration proceeding and not have to present that case for potentially years. Portman: and when they go into the community, you say can take a while. It's over 2 years in Ohio, you should know, before we can have a court hearing. So, it's over a 2-year period. What's the average around the country, do you know? McAleenan: the average is around 2 years, and in some jurisdictions even longer. Portman: and during that time period, can those individuals work? McAleenan: yes, by and large, although we're looking at tightening the rules so that there is not an opportunity to take advantage of the system. Portman: so, they have a work permit. My understanding is they don't get the work permit immediately but after a certain period of time. Is it 6 weeks? McAleenan: it's in the 30 to 90 days range, that's correct. Portman: and those individuals then, are going to work. So, if you are a trafficker, what you're telling people is, 1, if you come to the border, and seek asylum, or even if you're coming to the border, and seeking an immigration hearing, you'll be released into the community for a couple of years at least before your hearing, and you'll have the ability to work. And with the wage differential of, being able to make 10 times as much or sometimes as much as 20 times as much in the United States. Breitbart News has chronicled for months DHS's mass release of border crossers and illegal aliens into the interior of the country. Since December 2018, about 185,500 border crossers and illegal aliens have been released into the U.S. with only the promise that they will return for their court hearings years later. In the last week, alone, DHS has released nearly 8,000 border crossers and illegal aliens into the interior of the country. At current rates, more than 445,000 border crossers and illegal aliens will be released into American communities by the end of the year. The catch and release process often entails federal immigration officials busing border crossers into nearby border cities and dropping them off with the hope that they show up for their immigration and asylum hearings. The overwhelming majority of border crossers and illegal aliens are never deported from the country once they are released into the U.S. Today, there are anywhere between 11 and 22 million illegal aliens living across the country, the majority of which are concentrated in states like California, New York, Florida, Texas, and Illinois. A federal judge has temporarily blocked a Mississippi law that bans abortions once a fetal heartbeat can be detected, usually at the 6th or 7th week of pregnancy. The law was scheduled to go into effect July 1st. Here we go again, wrote U.S. District Judge Carlton W. Reeves, an Obama-era appointee, in his opinion. Mississippi has passed another law banning abortions prior to viability. The judge noted the same plaintiffs had successfully challenged Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban last year. Reeves continued. This court previously found the 15-week ban to be an unconstitutional violation of substantive due process because the Supreme Court has repeatedly held that women have the right to choose an abortion prior to viability, and a fetus is not viable at 15 weeks LMP. If a fetus is not viable at 15 weeks LMP, it is not viable at 6 weeks LMP. The judge said the law threatens immediate harm to women's rights, and would force the clinic to stop providing most abortion care. Planned Parenthood Southeast advocates celebrated the decision. The law would amend Mississippi code to provide that a physician performing an abortion on a pregnant woman before determining if the unborn human individual has a detectable fetal heartbeat is subject to license revocation or disciplinary action. The legislation provides an exemption for medical emergencies. Daniel Lorente, a Cuban dissident who became famous after receiving a public beating for waving an American flag in Cuba's Marxist May Day parade, tells Breitbart News the communist regime forced him on a one-way flight to Guyana to keep him from continuing his pro-American activism. Lorente asserted that, now in Guyana, he aspires to request political asylum in the United States, citing the 15 to 20 times Cuban police have arrested him for public statements against communism and threats from Cuban police that, if he ever sets foot in Cuba again, we will disappear you. He is currently wandering the streets of the Guyanese capital, Georgetown, possessing only the clothing he is wearing and a book bag containing a Bible, a copy of the U.S. Constitution, and a book on American history. He grabbed the book bag when police arrived at his home at 4 a.m. Havana time on May 16, thinking he was going to merely be arrested. He has no mobile phone or other means of communication in Georgetown. He is surviving thanks to the charity of Cubans and Cuban Americans in Guyana who recognized him and paid for his stay at a local inn, he told Breitbart News, but he is seeking employment and a legal avenue into the United States. Lorente spoke to Breitbart News in an exclusive interview in conjunction with journalist Leonard Gildry of Cayatur News, a Guyanese newspaper. Upon arriving in Guyana, Lorente contacted the American government outlet Marti News, which operates to inform the Cuban public about the realities of their communist government. Breitbart News translated the story Marti published and sought information on Lorente's whereabouts. Neither the Guyanese government, the U.S. Embassy, nor the airline Lorente told Marti he took, Aruba Airlines, could provide proof that Lorente left Cuba this week. Yet, through Breitbart News, Marti communicated to Lorente that Cayatur News, whose offices are in Georgetown, was interested in meeting him. When Gildry arrived in his office on Thursday afternoon, a man claiming to be Lorente was there, carrying his small book bag and wearing a shirt reading "I love" and depicting the American flag, the Western Hemisphere, and President Donald Trump. Lorente provided his Cuban passport, government identification, and airplane ticket stub as proof of his identity. The tattoos visible on his arm matched photos and videos of the activist repeatedly detained in Havana. His passport has stamps from Cuba's Jose Marti Airport and the Guyanese government, the latter signed by an agent named Archer. The Guyanese stamp raises questions as to how the Guyanese government claimed to have no proof that anyone named Daniel Lorente Miranda, the dissident's full name, ever entered the country. Breitbart News interviewed Lorente jointly from the United States via WhatsApp, translating from Spanish for the Cayatur News reporter. Representative Adam Schiff, DCA, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, is lashing out at President Donald Trump for directing Attorney General William Barr to declassify documents regarding the origins of the Obama administration's Russia investigation, claiming the order was un-American. While Trump stonewalls the public from learning the truth about his obstruction of justice, Trump and Barr conspire to weaponize law enforcement and classified information against their political enemies, Schiff wrote on Twitter Thursday evening. The cover-up has entered a new and dangerous phase. This is un-American, he added. Schiff's accusations came hours after President Trump announced that he directed the intelligence community to cooperate with Barr's probe into surveillance activities in the 2016 presidential election. In a memorandum to several cabinet directors, the president requests officials cooperate with Barr's probe into Spygate's originals and authorized the Attorney General to declassify information concerning the counterintelligence operation. Today's action will help ensure that all Americans learn the truth about the events that occurred, and the actions that were taken, during the last presidential election and will restore confidence in our public institutions, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said in a statement. President Trump has repeatedly called for an investigation into the surveillance activities of his campaign. For months, Republicans such as Mark Meadows, RNC, Jim Jordan, RO, and Matt Gaetz, RFL, have called on the White House to declassify parts of the FBI's Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, warned to spy on former Trump campaign foreign advisor Carter Page. The Bureau used portions of the Hillary Clinton-funded Steele dossier for warrants targeting Page. In a Monday interview with SiriusXM's Breitbart News Daily, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton ripped the Trump-Russia collusion narrative as the big lie, and even went as far to describe it as an international effort to take at Trump. Yesterday, you had confirmation over in the United Kingdom that intelligence operation there, the UK's intelligence apparatus, also knew about the dossier, Fitton told host and Breitbart News editor-in-chief host Alex Marlow, adding and part of that spying that took place with Stefan Halper also took place in London. The New York Times, at the end of their story, exposing that, disclosed that the UK knew about that spy operation as well. Fitton continued, "You had this other agency, supposedly a friend of the United States, laundering the Steele dossier that was created as a result of FBI DNC Clinton campaign money in consultation with Russian intelligence. It's pretty incredible stuff, and it shows you that it was an international effort to take at Trump. It wasn't just based here in the United States." Friday on Fox News Channel's America's Newsroom, Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, DCA, was getting under President Donald Trump's skin. Wallace said, "I have to say I'm not sure who was trolling whom. I think they were trying to get under each other's skin. I think there is no question that Nancy Pelosi, when she starts talking about 'I pray for the president and perhaps his family should have an intervention,' was trying to get at the president. And clearly she succeeded to some degree in getting under his skin when yesterday at the press conference he called on about 4 or 5 members of his administration to confirm the fact that he didn't have a temper tantrum and didn't lose his temper when he ended the meeting on infrastructure on Wednesday. He added, on the other hand, he gives as good as he gets and talking about crazy Nancy and that she is losing it and he is worried about her. You know, look, as a political reporter in this town it's all very entertaining, but as an American what it means is that nothing gets done. That has to be concerning whether it's infrastructure. There are a lot of things that have to get done in the course of this year, let alone 2020 and the campaign. They have to figure out how to fund the government by October 1st. They have to raise the debt limit, or the country goes into default. The president sure wants to get his trade deal, his new trade deal with Mexico and Canada passed. There is a lot of business they need to get a lot done, and at this point, they are not getting any of it done." Representative Jerry Nadler, DNY, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, appeared to nearly pass out during a press conference organized by New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio on Friday morning. In a video shared by Pix 11 News reporter Henry Rossoff, de Blasio and other attendees are seen asking Nadler if he is okay as they offer him water. The House Judiciary Panel chair began slumping in his seat shortly after concluding his remarks at PS 199 in the Upper West Side of Manhattan about speed enforcement cameras in school zones. At one point, de Blasio asks Nadler if he is okay, to which Nadler replied no. After being given water and an orange to eat, Nadler appeared to have regained his composure, according to NBC New York. An ambulance was alerted of Nadler's health scare and a stretcher was wheeled into the building. View image on Twitter. Fox News reports the New York Democrat was later taken to hospital. A spokesperson for Nadler said in a statement, "He is okay. Seems to have been dehydrated and it was very warm in the room. He is now responsive and receiving a checkup." Later, Nadler took to Twitter to write, "Appreciate everyone's concern. Was very warm in the room this morning, was obviously dehydrated and felt a bit ill. Glad to receive fluids and am feeling much better. Thank you for your thoughts."